This is a podcast by the News Minute, and you are listening to South Central.
Hello and welcome to South Central, a News Minute podcast where we put the South at the center. I am Pooja Prasanna. I'll be your host for the week. And joining me is Anisha Sheth, who's joining us second consecutive week in a row. Anisha, welcome to the show.
Hello.
So Anisha is joining us today because, as it's obvious by now, Dhanya is not anchoring the show, but hopefully she'll be back next week. I was on a vacation last week. That's why Anisha was with Dhanya. But Dhanya is not on a vacation this week. She's very much working, but she's in a place where there isn't good internet connectivity, so she's not joining us. But Anisha, there is a lot to unpack this week. It's the Independence Day week, right? So there's a lot that we're celebrating because as we've been telling you last couple of weeks, independent media is very, very important for the independence of the country. We might be free in that sense, but to really be free in practice, you need media that holds power to account, as we keep reminding you. So do support independent media this week, not just us. Any independent media of your choice. Could be The Wire, Scroll, Article 14, News Laundry, of course. Any of them that you like, make sure that you take a subscription or contribute to keep media free. But on our part, we're doing something this week. We have something called the 1947 offer. The reasons are very obvious. But essentially for 1,947 rupees, you get subscription for 6 months, a joint subscription of both the News Minute and News Laundry. This is to make sure that more and more people become subscribers. If you are already one, what you can do is gift subscription this Independence Week to your friends, family, anybody you think should be part of this community that we are building. But before we go to the headlines with Anisha, here's a quick reminder. If you're watching this on YouTube, remember that we are a podcast. So we are also there on Amazon, Spotify, Acast, Apple. So do make sure that you go there and listen to us and also give us a thumbs up if you like the work that we do. This is one way we can make sure that this reaches more people because we don't rely on algorithm and SE and all of that. You are our ambassadors in so many ways. So we're hoping that you'll share this with more people, spread the word. If you like the work that we do, tell people why they should listen to us and also why they should be subscribers of the News Minute. Anisha, now over to the headlines for the week.
Okay, so let's start with Kerala. Hindutva ideologue T.G. Mohandas receives bail from Kerala court. T.G. Mohandas, a former head of the BJP intellectual cell in Kerala and a political commentator, was arrested by the Thiruvananthapuram police for making derogatory and violent comments about student protesters at Jantar Mantar. I think he said they deserve to be shot.
Yeah.
So I'll leave that there and move on to the next headline. Attempt to silence criticism. Kerala opposition, KUWJ allege social media censorship. Okay. Moving to Karnataka. Karnataka cabinet portfolio allocation, DK Shivkumar keeps BDA, BMRDA, and he has said that the Karnataka government will consider a reshuffle, including the induction of a woman minister after the monsoon session, which actually starts today.
Absolutely dismal performance.
Shameful.
They couldn't find a single, we are asking for so less already. A single woman minister is also not there.
Let me remind you that this government before 2023 elections went on and on about how it was pro-woman, so it wants to give women charity. But when it comes to accountability and political power, it has behaved extremely shamefully.
Charity, we're not talking about welfare schemes. That is not what we're calling charity. But yeah, it is pretty sad.
It is when you consider it in the context of it being a tacit admission that we will not change your economic conditions, which will enable you to earn a decent salary, and then we will give you handouts. So that is actually my position on
Not something
Okay.
that I share and endorse, but that's a conversation.
Exactly,
For another time.
Okay, moving on to the next headline. Rape convict and ex-MP Prajwal Revanna found with a mobile phone pen drive in Bengaluru jail. Couple of days ago, a mobile phone and pen drive and charger were recovered from a life convict Prajwal Revanna's cell, and it has raised fresh questions of VIP treatment and security lapses at Bengaluru's Parappanagrahara prison.
This is a prison that is so notorious for this. How many times we have done stories on this, and it just keeps repeating. And the worst part is this. Of course, the Shashikala episode later, it turned out that not all of it was found, but you cannot contest the fact that she was given special treatment.
Bengaluru cops detain hundreds of people in illegal migrant drive. Activists accuse police of assault. The allegations stem from Operation Mukta, which the Bangalore police carried out last week on Saturday and Sunday. And they went around to half a dozen or a dozen police stations across the city, rounded up people like cattle, kept them there for hours and hours, assaulted them, did all kinds of things. And the legal basis for all of this is quite sketchy. At least they haven't made it very public so far.
This is where it feels like BJP and Congress, it's hard to differentiate sometimes.
Absolutely.
But yeah, do follow her work. Anisha has been on the ground. In fact, before she came for the recording of this, she went and met some people. She's going to one far end of Bengaluru after the recording. And Shivani too has been on the ground. There will be a video that will come out to a video report.
We move on to Tamil Nadu next. TN government orders Tamil Thai Varthu to be mandatorily rendered first at official events. So in the past, earlier the Tamil Nadu Assembly had adopted the resolution for Tamil Thai Varthu to be sung first at events. The move comes close on the heels of the Union Home Ministry making certain observations on the rendering of the state song and directing state governments to render Vande Mataram first at the beginning of state events.
Yeah, this isn't a new order as such, but if you want to understand the sequence of events, Megha Mukundan has done LME shots. That's a new product that we have. It's already up, so I suggest you go and watch it. Yeah.
10 fishermen from Rameshwaram held by Sri Lankan Navy on charges of fishing beyond Kachativu Islet. A senior official in the Tamil Nadu Fisheries Department has said that the arrested fishermen were taken to Talaimannar Naval Port and are likely to be produced in a court during the day. We move on to Andhra Pradesh. AP junior doctors to stop non-emergency services over pending stipend hike. The Andhra Pradesh Junior Doctors Association has been protesting for the implementation of a government order dated 2009, which allows for a biannual stipend revision of 15% in view of inflation.
Do not forget that Andhra Pradesh has given its government hospitals to private players. It has been privatized and then this happens.
Next, we go on to Kurnool. No rallies or road shows during Jagan Mohan Reddy's Kurnool visit, police say.
Yeah, the SP has put a lot of restrictions. They specifically said that people are not even allowed to gather and greet Jagan Mohan Reddy, the former chief minister. Jagan is going to the Kurnool jail to visit somebody there. And from the airport to the jail is a 38-kilometer stretch. And they've said that they're going to be using CCTV cameras to monitor and make sure that the restrictions that have been put are not broken. I think it's just excessive, but this has become the nature of Andhra Pradesh politics,
We move on to Telangana. Telangana CM Revanth Reddy, Irrigation Minister Uttam performed Varuna Yagam for good inflows into Krishna and Godavari rivers. So the Irrigation Minister N. Uttam Kumar Reddy initiated the ritual, performed with 108. Okay, I'm not even going to get into that. At Nagarjan Sagar early on Monday morning, with Chief Minister A. Revanth Reddy participating and receiving some kind of
Purnahati.
Yeah, that during its culmination.
Repeating my earlier point, sometimes it's hard to differentiate between Congress and BJP.
Next, we go to Hyderabad. Hyderabad is all set to get a 65-story Trump Tower luxury apartment. This is also another bizarre headline from Telangana.
This after, of course, they renamed the road after Donald Trump.
Oh, yes.
And the argument then was that this is the road on which you have the American consulate, US consulate. Now they want, I don't know, for all their efforts, I hope they at least get investment from the US. Otherwise, it'll just be a lot for nothing.
We move on to national headlines. FCRA bill sent to joint parliamentary committee amid opposition ruckus. The union government appears to have soften its stance on the FCRA bill after several Christian groups began launching appeals on YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp, and other social media. So the union government is now proposing to send the bill to a joint parliamentary committee.
Yeah, I was speaking to somebody who works with an organization that takes money through FCRA, and I found that very interesting. They said there's so much focus on the fact that churches will be impacted and Christian organizations are protesting, and of course NGOs also are concerned. But he said this is anti-Hindu. I said, why is that? He says that so essentially this tweak allows for if you don't file your tax properly, for example, then they can seize your assets. So Ram Mandir, Tirupati, Tirumala Devasthanam, a lot of temples also take money through FCRA. They can. So if there has been a scam now, which the SIT says there has been financial misappropriation in Ram Mandir funds. So he says leaving the Garbhagudi, this would allow for all of the entire temple complex to be seized if you go by this. So he says through that it's anti-Hindu. So, yeah.
Well, I hope this anti-Hindu lobby, sentiment or whatever, saves the rest of us from draconian provisions of the FCRA, but I'm not holding out much hope.
No, but there is also one thought many in Delhi have that this, the Modi government was forced to bring this on at the insistence of the US. So, which is perhaps why they have softened their stand and sent it to a JPC, which is not something they usually do on bills that they feel very bullish about. Okay, that's it for the headlines for this week. Let's move on to the first conversation. Let's head to our first conversation. I'm sure many of you have seen that very cute video that actor Vikram put out where he was cuddling with a gibbon, a lar gibbon. But right after people and his fans particularly thought it was very cute, there were a lot of there were criticisms, there were questions being asked about where it came from, how did they come in possession of a lar gibbon like that, because it is an endangered species and it doesn't come from India. Now, this video has rightly been raising many, many serious questions. How did an endangered wild animal come to be part of a private collection in the first place? And then zooming out, this is a problem where exotic animals from different parts of the world are being considered luxury commodities. So what are the laws that govern these? What about the chain of custody? What about the place of origin? These are questions that have come up. But since there is a celebrity who would put this video out, although he did delete it after a few hours, these are questions that are being asked. And to discuss this, we have two people who've reported on these very questions that we're talking about very extensively. Rajshekhar, he's an award-winning reporter and author. He closely tracks energy and environment, both in India and internationally. He's joined us thrice before, and ditched us a couple of times too. Welcome back on South Central.
Oh, even that goes into the introduction.
Yes, it does. We don't let you off. But thank you for joining us today from the peripheries of Bengaluru. Joining us from Chennai is Siddharth Prabhakar. He's an independent journalist. He's had experience reporting on white-collar crime, money laundering, international wildlife trafficking, drug trade, smuggling, cybercrime, and corruption. This is your first appearance, so welcome to South Central.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
So just for those who are not very aware of what happened, Siddharth, I ask you to first explain what the video was and how the controversy broke out.
So around 3 days ago, actor Vikram posted a video with a gibbon. A lot of, like you rightly pointed out, a lot of people found it very cute. But then people like us who saw it immediately realized that it's not a primate that is native to India. So obviously it's an exotic species. And as we dug further, we found out that it originates from the forests of Southeast Asia, which is a biodiversity hotspot, and obviously it has been trafficked. As has been reported quite widely, gibbons are one of the most animals which are trafficked from these forests to India, either through the air route or through the land route. And this is exactly what has happened in this case. The documents show that this gibbon was traded from by a person in Manipur to a breeder in Erode, who then sold it to Vikram's daughter's father-in-law, who is a prominent businessman called C.K. Ranganathan. He is into the pet trade as well. Not trade. He has a pet industry. He has a hospital and things like that. So obviously the ownership document showed that it belonged to C.K. Ranganathan, and the right questions about it being a trafficked animal were raised. Now, what we need to understand is that baby gibbon, it is not something like a reptile, like a snake or a iguana that can be easily like taken, or like a star tortoise which is harvested from the scrub jungles of South India. If a baby gibbon has to be taken from the wild, has to be brought to humans, its parents have to be poached. Because it's almost like a human baby. The mother protects it very closely. So poachers have to kill the mother and bring the bloodied baby gibbon to humans, and then train it, and then that is how it makes its way into the trade. So there are multiple questions here. One is about poaching, of course, which is very animal cruelty perspective, and the other is obviously about the trafficking of this animal across the border, which in itself is a major violation under the Wildlife Protection Act. Also, we have been informed by forest officials of Tamil Nadu that the documentation in this regarding this monkey and other, there were 3 gibbons that were purportedly brought from Manipur to Erode, and the breeder only has 2 at his site. So the documents for these 2 itself are not in order, and the 3rd gibbon has died. And as per rules, when such animals die or are bred, the forest department has to be informed in advance. So that has not happened in this case. So there are violations at multiple levels in this.
Yeah, there is an investigation going on. And like I said earlier, Vikram has deleted, that video immediately. But the larger question, Rajshekhar, and I come to you with that. Do tell us how complicated this gets, not just in this case, but kind of determining the provenance of the exotic animal. And then there's a chain of transfer. All of these come into question. What are the guidelines and laws that govern possession of such an animal, an endangered animal in India?
Okay, I'll come to the legal parts of this later. Let's start with this. Let's pull back a little. Okay. Long time back, some couple of years ago, I was talking to a senior official in the Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. As the name suggests, this is sort of run by the central government. It's in charge of curbing illegal trade in wildlife. Right. And what this person was saying is that illegal trade in wildlife, is one of the biggest organized crime activities anywhere in the world. It's a strange thing in that when you look at the world today, you would think that drug smuggling, gold smuggling, human sort of trafficking, and gun running would be huge mafia industries. Wildlife trafficking in that sense looks like something which is a very old-fashioned notion, right? In the 18th century and 19th century, there was a great deal of curiosity about other animals, other wildlife, and people used to collect them. The strange thing is that even as the biodiversity crisis has deepened and accelerated, illegal trade in wildlife continues to be a huge illegal economic activity, right? How it works is fairly simple to understand. I mean, you're really talking about supply chains which extend across the world. You're talking about, let's say, so there are 2 parts to this. There is the one where you have an endangered species which is being captive born, captive bred and traded. There's the other one, even more harmful perhaps for these species, where you're trying to catch species from the wild and bring them into the supply chains and then onto the customers, right? So the way the chain works is pretty simple. It's like saying that there is a middleman sitting somewhere, let's say countries like Thailand or Malaysia or wherever, who is in touch with customers or their representatives in the destination countries like India, as in this case, right? And then you have these guys also in touch with people who will procure these animals. they will be, let's say, closer to the forest in a Papua New Guinea or whatever. So the chain you're seeing then is that there is a guy, a trapper, who is inside the forest or near the forest. He's catching the animal. It is brought to, through whatever means, it comes through maybe multiple intermediaries. It'll come to this guy in Thailand or wherever, and then it'll be dispatched. Usually once you have confirmation that there is an order for, let's say, as in this case, a large gibbon. So where does each discrete order start is one kind of a question. Is it that the guy sitting in Erode will say that, I want 3 large gibbons. And then that order cascades back in the chain, goes through to multiple intermediaries and suppliers sitting in places like Thailand, who then start competing to sort of source these. And then cascades further into the destination, into the origin country, saying that, okay, if you can find this, we are going to buy this animal from you and pay you so much. Right? Necessarily a very violent trade, because in the case of some species which are which live in a family unit, chimpanzees, gorillas, gibbons, you will have to kill the troop to get these subadults. Thereafter, some more of the subadults will die as they get moved from the origin forest in Indonesia to Bangkok, from a Bangkok to India. And so the mortality numbers are generally pretty high. Really, animals hanging on by the skin of their teeth, trying not to go extinct. And so there's a level of idiocy in this, in that some guy wants to have these as a pet, right? Because these will not serve any biodiversity function any longer. Even if you were to sort of breed them again, reintroducing them into the wild is very hard. There's a book called Animal Traffic, which talks exactly about this, that once you rescue these animals, what do you do with them? They've lost their fear of humans. You cannot release them casually into the forest. They won't survive. And if you're talking about rewilding them through treatment, behavior modification, and so on, that is something for which people don't have funds either. So necessarily, therefore, what you have is a net subtraction of the wild population at a time when several of these species are pretty endangered. And this is one example. You have the rarer a species, the greater the demand for it. Right? And so this chain sort of builds. For extremely rare species, the incentives to breed them captively are even higher. Right? So for example, in Africa, you have tigers being bred, you have lions being bred, and what has come out of it is industry which straddles every stage in the life of this endangered animal. It's like saying that, I have a tiger cub and you can pay to feed it milk. When it's a subadult, I can charge people to go walking with this subadult. When it's a full-grown male, I can chain it up and get people to take photographs with it, either by chaining it or drugging it. You will find videos like this all over the place. And when it is older yet, I can charge people to shoot this tiger or this lion in a manufactured hunt. It's called canned hunting. Right? And thereafter, even after the animal is killed, there is another sort of set of economic gains to be made of it, where you sell the fur, the teeth, the bones, the organs. Right? So you have this vague sort of a schemata where you have, depending on the rarity of the animal, you may have a captive bred industry, and you may have the animals being caught from the wild. With the captive born industry, there's been a huge amount of lobbying within global frameworks for controlling wildlife trade, like the Convention for International Trade in Endangered Species, where exemptions have been won, saying that if an animal is captive born and is endangered, it can still be transferred to other users and so on. It can still be traded, albeit for scientific reasons or reasons of mercy, and charity. I'm paraphrasing rather heavily here, but this is the gist of it. And this has created its own loophole because it's very hard to prove that an animal is indeed from a captive farm. Because I don't think our scrutiny is strong enough to be able to establish where these guys, there was a park in South Africa called Akubaba. It was never clear where Akubaba was sourcing its tigers and lions from. Were they all captive born? And captive born is a really hellish life, incidentally. So not really the softer option. At the same time, what you are now seeing is a rise in what rich individuals are calling rescue centers. And with that, you sort of end up with this outcome where you say that, this is a humanitarian gesture and therefore we should be allowed to keep these animals. But the sourcing remains acutely unclear. Right. At the CITES investigation last year also flagged this, that rescue centers are propping up. And I think what we are going to see going forward is many more rich individuals creating their own rescue centers. Because it's one way of keeping, it's a loophole which has come into being recently, of saying that I can create a rescue center and use it to have wildlife. All I have to say is, look, this thing was in distress. I had to step in and do something for its own good.
Of course, definitely rich, super rich, uber rich individuals creating their own rescue center is definitely a big part of this jigsaw puzzle. But also smaller parts are that with India becoming a richer country, I mean, more people having more disposable income and many people living in flats, the need to acquire different kinds of pets, animals that they have seen on their trips to Thailand and Malaysia and Africa is increasing. So this is why people are okay to have, say, an exotic monkey like a marmoset, which is only a size, it's only this small, or a snake, a ball python, or even anaconda, or the American caiman is one of the most trafficked animals from Thailand to Chennai, Bangalore, and Mumbai. And this is not a Chennai specific phenomenon. It's there in India and the smaller towns as well. I have seen a wildlife activist WhatsApp group. He's part of several hundred WhatsApp groups of pet traders, which straddles not only India's big cities but smaller towns as well. Even in Bangalore, there are many exotic pet shops. In fact, outside Bangalore, I have seen advertisements of places where children can be taken for a one-day picnic. They are given food and everything where they pet these exotic animals. So it raises a lot of questions as to what is the awareness level of people who want to have these exotic pets, because the government has just not done enough to warn them of the kind of ecological as well as health risks that having these pets possess.
But that said, I know you said it's not a Chennai only phenomena, Siddharth, but in an article that you'd written for the News Minute a couple of years ago, you'd cited numbers that between 2011 and 2020, Chennai had emerged as a hub. Somewhere around 36% of these endangered animals were gaining entry through Chennai airport. This is based on the seizures, right? So tell us what happens after that. Is that just the entry point and from there it is distributed? How does this network work? And can we look at some sort of a number? What are the economics involved in this?
Just to sort of put in one layer of context, which is that, as with crime statistics, right? The state which is doing the most to curb wildlife trafficking will end up being seen as the hotspot for this, right? So there are two layers of visibility working here. One, Chennai Customs has been very proactive, and therefore they've been catching a lot of these shipments. At the same time, reporters like Siddharth have been very active as well in terms of sort of staying on the beat. And so what we get to see about the prominence of Chennai in this landscape is because of the customs and partly and because of, the New Indian Express and so on. The rest of the country is less has airports which are less attuned or interested in this matter. And local reportage is also pretty much absent. I see very few reports on wildlife captures from, say, a Bhopal or wherever else. So I was talking to Siddharth about this a year ago, and he said something very interesting at that time. He said that, as the number of animal shipments being caught at Chennai increased, we found these supply chains reorienting from landing in Chennai to landing in a smaller airport in Tamil Nadu, thereafter landing in a Bangalore or a Bombay or wherever else. And so this is very much a pan-India story.
So what happens is that once these animals usually are stuffed inside suitcases, they are drugged before the carrier boards the flight from, say, Kuala Lumpur or Bangkok, and then if at all he or she is successfully able to get it past the customs in the Indian landing airport. Largely it is Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai. We have seen examples of one primate Gibbon seizure in Andaman as well. There's been a few in Calcutta. There have been few in Jaipur as well, in Delhi as well. So once they get past the customs, usually their handler will meet them outside the airport. Then it is taken to a kind of a godown or a warehouse where they are kept for a while. They are probably fed, they are given water, and it's kind of a mini rehabilitation center, if you may. And then it is then advertised to Instagram, mainly through Instagram, because you see most of these animals are they make for very good pictures and videos. So that is what attracts the buyers on Instagram. In fact, if you just put exotic animals on Instagram, you will be able to see a lot of pages, which ideally I feel that the cybercrime in various states as well as nationally should be clamping down upon. So these animals are sold through Instagram. In fact, I know of a case, I have reported on a case where a Tamil Nadu police constable was then removed from service. He was a linchpin of this exotic species trade. So he used to ship these animals to Bangalore as well from Chennai. In fact, I know of a case where he has sent animals like caiman, which is a kind of a crocodile, an American alligator, through a bus that is going from Chennai to Bangalore. And then there are dealers in different cities who then take charge of this consignment, and then in many states, especially in Karnataka, in JP Nagar, there is a shop which openly sells exotic animals. So I'm sure this is there in Kerala and other states as well. So this is how the supply chain moves. And contrary to popular perception, owning an exotic species, say like a gibbon, it might cost several lakhs. But if you want to own an iguana, you can get it for a few thousands. Or if you want to have like a small python, a ball python, especially what is popular, I'm told, is a black and white ball python, because it resembles a chessboard. So that is the kind of an attraction that these animals have. And some animals are fluorescent in color. So it is very attractive. So you see, just like how kids are addicted to different colors in cartoon networks, channels showing cartoons, these animals also attract these young kids. And they are the ones who kind of tell the parents, okay, well, fine, we want these animals. So that is also kind of a nuance in this trade.
Yep. So I was just listening to the both of you talk, and I have a question that I think maybe both of you can answer. Because Siddharth, you mentioned that, I think both of you mentioned that, some of these animals need to be killed in order to, for them to have that small little sub-adult or baby, whatever, right? Now, some of these animals like gibbons, for example, monkeys and other creatures, they are known to be social animals, right? They almost like humans, they need to be socialized. They live in communities, they need to be socialized. Without that early social contact with the mother and the other adults which are part of the group, they don't quite learn social behaviors that would carry them into adulthood to have a healthy, normal kind of life, right? And Rajshekhar, you mentioned that, tracing whether an animal was bred in captivity is quite difficult. Is it because they rely extensively on documentation?
So I was talking to a forest officer just today morning. So he was telling me why gibbons, when they are brought, they are sold as pets, they need to be babies. This is because they are not really conditioned to survive on their own. So that's why even in the wild, if you see, they cling to their mothers, and like Rajshekhar mentioned earlier, they move along in groups, because the mother usually teaches them survival skills. So that is why they are poached when they are babies, and when they are brought as babies, there apparently are trainers who teach them, who like give them the food or take care of them, so that they learn how to trust humans.
Okay, so I think a couple of things. One, in terms of figuring whether an animal is captive born or from the wild, and whether we can figure that out from its behavior, hard question to answer, partly because a lot of the trafficked animals, right, reptiles particularly, they will have a stress response which may not kick in immediately. It might kick in after the journey is over. And so how do you do? Right? One. Two, pinpointing origins of these animals is damn hard, because these are supply chains with multiple rungs in them. And here it's very easy to say that, I am getting this animal from this one guy who is a commercial breeder. This is his license. Now, would the Indian cops have access to the financials and documentation of that guy sitting in Bangkok to say that, tell me where you got this particular individual animal from? That's a issue that Interpol or somebody would have to pick up, or there would have to be close collaboration between the source country and the destination country. And the problem there, again, is that now the bodies which have to do this are bodies like the Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, which I started with. Now, surprise, surprise, it's a grossly understaffed institution. For all of Northeast India, they had, I think, 5 people when I was last there 2 years ago. There is no way they can keep tabs of all this. Compounding matters, there has been this long-standing demand that the WCCB should not be under the Environment Ministry, because the Environment Ministry knows, to take the scientific word for this, squat about illegal trade in wildlife. This is an organized crime business, right? It should be with the professional investigating agencies.
No, what Rajshekhar is saying is that the WCCB should be with the Home Ministry, so that they get more resources, because this is an organized crime syndicate that they're investigating.
Most of them have been really very good and very, very sort of burning out because of the high workload and high pressure and the absolute lack of support.
I actually used to know a WCCB investigator whose investigation was so good, whose interrogation skills were so good, that customs used to bring him in for questioning, not in gold smuggling cases, but wildlife smuggling cases. He was really good. So that is that is to say from the competence part. But just to add on to this, see, the thing is that the fines for wildlife crime are, the penalty is very less, and the investigation drags out, mainly because I feel that the country or the forces that be are not, wildlife crime comes too low on their priority list. Say, if I am to speak from the perspective of customs and DRI, what many officers have told me is that we focus on gold because it has an economic value to the country. Okay, you are either not paying taxes, or I can stock the gold in the treasury or sell it. It makes money for the country. One, narcotics, because it causes harm to the society, so there is that kind of a value. Electronics also something similar. But wildlife, when exotic is brought into the country and they seize it, it is sent back. So it has no economic value, one. Second is, instinctively the officers, investigating officers or the enforcement officers, they are not able to understand what is the value seizing animals or seizing wildlife is going to bring to either the government or the country. So that is why it is low on their priority.
So there was this thing that I was reading about some Russian oligarch. He had upholstered every seat in his yacht in the skin of a different endangered animal. So this is at one level a game of flex, of projecting power. Look at me, I'm able to do this, right? And so when endangered species become a status symbol, right? It also means that the kind of scrutiny that state bodies are able to bring to bear on these transfers, A, goes down. And once that scrutiny goes down, because of dilutions in law or understaffing or whatever, what you then see is a lot of copycat behavior taking off. More people sort of saying, I could also do this. Maybe I cannot have the full sort of spectrum of wild species, but I can certainly have 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 or whatever it is. So that starts off. Now, the other thing which adds another variation into this is that you have very often people starting to flow between multiple commodities which can be trafficked. If demand for gold is low, you will switch to something else which is profitable. And if demand for drugs is low or gun running is low, then you will say, I can sort of use my network to service a different kind of a demand. And so then the question here is of relative returns. As India decides to start becoming a global hotspot for inbound wildlife trafficking, prices will rise. And with that, this becomes more and more attractive. And with that, the pressure on the wild animals globally increases exponentially. And most of the world now has forest patches which are very, very small. And therefore, the number of individuals you have of any species are actually pretty low. And so when you start subtracting from there, right, the biodiversity crisis deepens. I forgot where I read this, but there was some case of some birds where the survival rate was 13% or something at the end of the journey. So you take out 100, 87 die en route, 13 make it. Net, you've lost 100 viable future contributing members of that species.
And I get what you guys are saying about how saving biodiversity or an endangered species is very low on our list of priorities for reasons that you guys mentioned. But, we've on Instagram and other platforms, we've seen how in Dubai, for example, they have these large tigers that they're kept in home and everyone's coming and petting and making videos out of it and all. But even here in India, except for this case, because Vikram happens to be a known face and a celebrity, there's very less focus on the person who owns, for a lack of better word, quote unquote, owns these animals. There's more news that we hear about smugglers being caught, people in airports being caught. So should the onus now shift to those who are creating this demand in the first place? Then do you think that the supply will slowly recede? Is that one approach we could look at?
I don't think the political economy of the country will allow you to do that.
Why is that?
These are, look at Ranganathan, father of the sachet revolution in India, right? He's a politically influential guy. So who would have the wherewithal? Who would want to which politician would want to burn their political capital with that guy just for the sake of some biodiversity, right? So, in that sense, there's a hard question for me to answer. Would you just tighten the network so hard that they cannot function? How do you combat gold smuggling or gun running? Right? You cannot stop new militias from coming up, which are going to want these guns. But you could presumably sort of, just crack down on the supply chains internationally. Because behavior modification is a very hard thing to do.
No, but what I feel is that there is not much of a stigma associated with having exotic pets. That is the biggest point. Say, for example, if say somebody is caught having some kind of narcotic in his house or found to be involved in the narcotic trade or say gun running or some other kind of organized crime, there is a certain stigma associated to it. But when we come to exotic pets, the first reactions to actor Vikram petting this gibbon was, oh, so sweet, oh, so cute. Okay, very few people actually said, oh, is it legal, is it illegal? There were a lot of people saying, oh, he's so kind, the thing was that he loves animals. But the thing is that nobody questioned why a wild animal had to be separated from its natural parents and brought to our rich people so that they can pet it and get so sweet kind of comments. So that is, so I feel that the stigma of having exotic animals as pets, it is not yet ingrained in our psyche. So first that has to change, only then I feel the answer to your question will start coming in.
Yeah, I agree.
See, having exotic pets is a major problem because these can become invasive species. So I would request the News Minutes viewers to check out the Burmese python issue in Florida's Everglades. In Florida Everglades, Everglades is a wetland, and in 70s and 80s, America used to have a lot of exotic Burmese pythons, which are native to Southeast Asia. And then in one tornado, one breeding center, a tornado disrupted, or kind of a lot of Burmese pythons escaped from the breeding center. And now Florida is grappling with it. In fact, these pythons, they are eating up a lot of alligators as well. They're eating a lot of deer. This is causing a problem for the Florida cougar. I think it's a Florida, a local animal. So they are causing a problem for this Florida cougar as well. And it is so big an issue that the state and the United States government, they actually have hunting competitions to kill Burmese pythons. They reward people who kill a lot of pythons and all. So this is a classic example of invasive species, which I feel India is also staring at right now.
And to add to what Siddharth is saying, the other big risk of having these species at home is zoonosis. COVID-19 came about because you had wild animals taken from forests, kept in very unsanitary, packed containers. And the virus then jumped from one species to the other. Anybody getting a wild animal into their house is relying on that same supply chain of animals sourced from we don't know where, kept under what conditions, with which other species, what risks and viruses they carry. And so when you bring this into your house, A, and B, since it's a pet, you're making it sit on your lap and so on, any disease it carries can so easily jump to you.
On that note, we'll stop, but we will continue tracking what happens, because remember, there is an investigation ongoing in Tamil Nadu. The fact that Vikram happens to be a celebrity has put the spotlight on the entire issue. So thank you so much, both of you, for joining us on this conversation. Recently, Tamil Nadu Assembly Speaker JCD Prabhakar led an anti-abortion rally in Chennai. And amongst many things that he said life starts at conception. And he spoke very strongly against abortion, and also said that he will take this up with the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Vijay, and said that Vijay has some innovative ideas. While this has been passed off for now as his individual personal opinion, this raises many questions about people in positions of power, authority, questioning a law, questioning something that has been settled in India. India does have fairly progressive laws on abortion. It permits abortion under the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. Of course, this is subject to specific conditions. But that said, this is more than we have seen in many, many countries, including Ireland. What this does raise when a person who holds a constitutional authority makes a statement like this, it questions whether while there is something in law, what kind of a repercussion this could have on doctors, on young women who want to get legal abortion. So we're going to be looking at many questions like who should decide whether someone continues a pregnancy or not. Is it the individual, the doctor, a religious institution, the state, or the society? I think that is the conversation that this statement has restarted. To have this conversation, we have with us Dr. Alka Barua. She's a senior independent consultant on sexual and reproductive health in India. She serves as a member of the steering committee and project advisory committee, as well as the abortion team lead at Common Health India. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you.
And also joining us from a Chennai studio in a bit will be our colleague Bharathy. She's a senior reporter at the News Minute. She has covered a whole range of issues starting from social justice, identity and cultural politics. She's also written an opinion piece on what the Speaker of Tamil Nadu Assembly said. The link is in the description. You can go and read. Bharathy will be joining us in just a bit. But I want to take the first question to you. I'm sure you've read the statement, the statement that the speaker made. Dr. Barua, what does it mean when somebody who holds a constitutional authority, a position, like I said, makes a statement like this? What sort of a ripple effect will it have on doctors, on young women, and society at large?
It sort of gives more leverage to the anti-abortion lobby. But when our experience, I don't know whether you're aware of what Common Health, the organization to which I belong or which I work with, is a coalition of about 400 individuals and civil society organizations. And our experience at the ground level is whatever anybody may say, whatever the law may be when it comes to women, if they want to have the abortion, they have the abortion irrespective of what people say or what the law is. The only difference it makes when such statements are made and if there are any implications for legal provision of services is that they go for unsafe termination. And that's what we are concerned about, whether this kind of statement and the implications, whether it makes doctors wary about providing the services or there is a chilling effect on services within the state of Tamil Nadu. It may lead to more unsafe abortions, which will result in, impact on the health indicators, which Tamil Nadu state has been boasting about till now or has had a fairly good performance on the reproductive health indicators. So that's what.
Yeah. Bharti, you have also spoken to people on ground for a series that the News Minute did earlier. Interestingly, this march was started and it was around Stella Maris College. It's a all-girls college in Chennai, all-women's college. Bharti is an alumni too. What I want to know from you, Bharti, is, when such conversations happen on ground, what is it that you have seen in your conversations with young women? What sort of an effect will it have on how they view abortion rights?
Yeah, Pooja, like you said, it's my alma mater. And the problem is that, it's not about a personal opinion, right? This is a college that is in the constituency of JCD Prabhakar. And then he goes there. It's an all-women's college, as you said. It is outright irresponsible and actively harmful to turn such young people, such young women, against their own fundamental rights. It's more than a personal opinion. This is just indoctrination. It is an attack on their fundamental rights, and you're telling them that you should be antagonistic towards it.
But just to take a step back and look at the law itself, for those who are not very familiar with what the laws say, India's Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, which was amended in 2021, permits abortion under specified circumstances, and it's also expanded the upper gestational limit from 20 to 24 weeks for certain categories. Dr. Barua, my question to you is this. There are two things that we're looking at. There is the law, which says that is abortion legally permitted. Then there is what happens on the ground. Can someone actually obtain a safe abortion? Because this, when we're looking at what happens in practice, we're looking at multiple dimensions, multiple factors. In your experience, where does India stand? I know that we can't look at the country as in one view. It's not homogeneous, urban centers versus rural areas, plus regional discrepancies too. But what has your experience been on how women experience this on ground?
Right. Just before I talk about that, 2 points I want to make. Abortion is not a right in India. It is still a conditional access to services, and it's a crime in the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita in case you don't meet those conditions. So, we have an act which allows under certain conditions, and it's a crime if you don't meet those conditions. You are exposed to penalizing, you are penalized if you don't meet those conditions, both the service seeker as well as the provider. What we have seen at the ground level is, if you look at it, the law is largely dependent on the service providers approval for services, providing the services. So it's not a woman-friendly law as you look at it, in greater detail. It's not an act which came out of a women's rights movement. It's an act which came out of population control concerns, as well as concerns about increasing maternal mortality related to unsafe abortion. And as a result, what happens is, if those conditions are not met, many service providers who are wary, and particularly so ever since the PCPNDT Act and the POXO Act have come about, women tend to avoid going to government services, service providers, or to service providers who they feel may object or may not provide their services. If you look at the recent Guttmacher data, it's not very recent, it's 2015, but that's the last data we have. Almost more than 3/4 of the abortions are through medical abortion pills and over-the-counter medications. And that one reason is because women are wary of, going to qualified service providers to get services. So that's how it has translated, that more than it's close to 5.5 decades of passing the law, and still so many terminations of pregnancy are happening outside the facility, and theoretically actually look at it illegally, because over-the-counter sale of pills is not legally permitted without the prescription of OBGYN. So that's the reality at the ground level. So, there are specified conditions under the NTP Act which say that the woman's health, be it physical, mental, emotional, social health, and the status of the fetus, if it is likely to be a fetus with anomalies. Yeah, anomalies. Abnormality can still be slightly different things. And if it's sort of a pregnancy arising out of rape, incest, or contraceptive failure, which again has implications for the woman's mental health. So those are the, or if there is a threat to her health, a major threat to her health, only under those conditions termination is allowed. And that too, if the provider, up to 20 weeks, one provider, beyond that, approval of 2 providers. So if they approve of it, and beyond 4 weeks, it is approval or permission by a medical board. So throughout, if you look at it, is a third-party authorization. We do focus on, the NTP Act taking the consent of the woman, but what we forget is it actually allows the provider to take the decision. So that's what it is at the ground level.
Bharti, the Supreme Court, as we have discussed earlier, has increasingly framed abortion through perspective of autonomy and privacy. But we can't take the socio-economic circumstances away from this conversation. I was earlier referring to the series that you were a part of. We did a couple of years ago. Tell us what you found on ground when you went to certain hospitals to see how these conversations are had, and what was the response of service providers, like doctors, staff in hospitals. What did you see on ground?
As we were reporting on this, we witnessed something else. There was a young woman who came with her baby and her husband. She said that she had a medical condition, that her periods are irregular. She said that her child also has a condition where she constantly needs to give the child care, and she can't go through a pregnancy right now. She was straight up lied to in a public hospital. She was told that if she has to go through, if she wants to go through abortion, she needs to go through a sterilization procedure as well, and that is the law, which is a lie, right? And they shamed her. They said, why can't you just have the baby? You look fine. You seem fine. This is a woman who meets all the societal criteria of an ideal woman. And yet this is what happens to her. On one side, getting ECPs is still tricky. And then you start having conversations about against abortion. What are women supposed to do? And it's not just anecdotal. I would also like to add that beyond this experience that I just spoke about, data shows that it is not easy for women to access abortion very easily. What Dr. Alka mentioned, that it is still a provider-centric act that keeps becoming a blockage to people who are trying to access abortion. The 2022 study by the National School of Law in Bengaluru said that there are 800,000 unsafe abortions happening every year. Then they add that this problem is because the law is being used against them. There are additional legal hurdles being placed against them. There are they are denied abortion outright in many cases. And all of this is being worsened by caste, by class, whether this is a rural area or an urban area. So the fiction can be warped into propaganda, but it's not going to become facts.
Dr. Barua, you mentioned mental health. When somebody is assessing whether it is safe for a woman to carry out a pregnancy, more often than not, we're looking at the physical safety and perhaps the most extreme case, will she survive or will she not? Death being, the way in which it's determined. What about mental health? How much do people even look at it? Is that a part of our conversation? Is a woman's mental health, will it allow her to continue with pregnancy? What sort of counseling sessions happen? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, if you look at the ministry's comprehensive abortion care guidelines, it does talk about counseling before termination of pregnancy, then the procedure, and then again counseling for contraception. But at the field level, this usually doesn't happen. Mental state of the woman is something which more often than not is not taken into account at all while providing services. So yeah, that's a major problem there.
2012 is when many of us here, especially in Karnataka, had reported on the death of Savita Halappanavar. She was a young woman who died in Ireland because she was not allowed to abort. Ireland, like several other countries, have very, very, very restricted abortion laws. Heavily restrictive. And Savita Halappanavar's case became a rallying point for many people. In fact, recently we learned that there is a statue in a very prominent place of Savita because many people, women and men including, rallied for relaxation of laws, and in 2018 there was a referendum. Bharathy, you have also traced this case and you've had conversations with many Irish journalists who've covered this case from the other side. Here we were speaking to family of Savita Halappanavar. Her family was, of course, devastated. They live in northern part of Karnataka in Belgaum. And they said that, perhaps if she was in India, we could have still saved her. But that aside, tell us, what was the conversation like? What was the movement like in Ireland to, up to the point of that referendum in 2018? And what's the situation like now?
So yeah, as you said, Savita died in 2012. She died at the Galway University Hospital, and the emphasis at that point, the report that came out after that was that there was an overemphasis on waiting for the fetal heartbeat to stop and an underemphasis on managing the infection and sepsis that she had, which ultimately killed her. That became a trigger point in Ireland against the abortion ban. We should remember that this is a majority Catholic nation where identity politics has played out in many ways, right? And so when the movement built up in 2018, I saw how there were so many people from across the world, Irish people from across the world, women, men, who were posting about flying back, who were posting photographs of themselves from the airport saying, we are going back to vote to lift this ban. And they won with a 66% of the votes. And that was what gave them the Health Regulation of Termination of Pregnancy Act. So this kind of, it is important that we mobilize. It is important that we start making the kind of noise that we are right now. As you said, I remember that there was an Irish journalist we spoke to who talked about, I remember her crying, actually, because it was so emotional, that entire period for them, to cover it, to see what Savita's case did when she could have been saved and she wasn't. It was a highly emotional battle to get there. And I think that even now, a lot of the conversations in Ireland, where though there is a right-wing push, there is a white nationalist push that is happening in Ireland as there is in the global north. A lot of the pushback seems to also come back from the country's more progressive leanings, right? They have an anti-colonial view, they have a pro-Palestine view, and I think that all these things do come together in building movements that are rights-based, whether it is about Palestine, or whether it is about your own country, or whether it's about immigration, or whether it's about abortion.
Can you describe the grouping that is all ranged against abortion rights? I mean, who are these people? Like, what are their ideological persuasions, social backgrounds? I mean, can you throw some light on that?
So, they are across religions, and what is happening is, if you look at some of the photographs from Bangalore or from Pune, you will see even school children participating in these rallies. So, young school children, they are not even those who are in 11th and 12th, which to some extent one can understand. There are young school children who are participating. You have very graphic sort of models of fetus, etc., being used to educate these people. So, as I mentioned, there is no one specific group. It started as something which the Catholic Church perhaps, supported, but it's no longer restricted to them. These are people who are fairly conservative, have conservative religious views, who are trying to do all this with the support from the West, where there is financial backing of the West.
I'd like just to bring in one point here to add to what Dr. Alka said. We have to look at the organizers as well, right? This happened under the Catholic Bishops' Conference of India. As Dr. Alka said, it has been going on for many years. This year was the 5th such march. And the number, it is not just, it is really a very high-level leadership that is getting involved in this. The CBCI is a powerful organization. The people who were in attendance in Chennai this time was the Cardinal, was the Archbishop of Hyderabad was there, the President of the CBCI was there, the Archbishop of Madras, Mylapore was there, the President of the Tamil Nadu Bishops' Council was there, and then there is JCD Prabhakar, who is introduced as the speaker and as the MLA of that constituency. So there is a lot of power that is also getting involved over here. It is not some Catholic group just in the city or in another city who are organizing against abortion rights.
Yeah, and I also want to just look at, to wrap up one thing that he said that's made headlines. Life begins at conception. This has a lot of bearing. It's not something that's said in isolation. And there is a morality attached to it. There's a certain kind of stigma to any kind of legally allowed abortion that comes with it. Dr. Barua, how do you view this statement? Why is it so problematic?
Well, if you look at, I would not comment on when life begins, but what I would talk about is, what the LTP Act says. Does it bring up these issues? No. Does it bring up the issue of viability? No. So why is it that the judges, if you look at even the court rulings, they have been fairly inconsistent. Some of them have brought up the issue of viability while giving the judgment. And that is what is sort of, feeding into this kind of conversation. And this is something which is is permitted under the MTP Act. I must tell you something very interesting. What a rural woman told me, which makes a lot of sense. When they talk about the right of the fetus or the life begins at conception, she said, if that was so, then in census, you count the pregnant woman as one and not as two. When you buy a bus ticket, the pregnant woman buys one ticket and not two. So, that very sort of ground level common sense explains it better than perhaps what our acts and our policy makers or program managers do. That's where
I also feel that we need to look at it in the context of larger political movements in India and abroad. Particularly, again, to come back to the TVK, when the TVK continues to project, or at least its supporters keep trying to project Vijay as Tamil Nadu Zoran Mandani, but then you have a speaker from your party who is talking Christian nationalist Republican views, it looks absurd. So there has to be some ideological clarity on where you stand on democracy, where you stand on secularism. And we can't bring in these conversations here and allow it to take root beyond what has happened in the last 2-3 days.
So I just have one question, Dr. Alka, if you could possibly answer that. See, the women's movement has always been criticized for not having fought for abortion rights. You got it for free, that population control, background to it and all of that is there. But has there never been a movement to expand or amend, to change the focus of the MTP Act, basically? Is that something that you can comment on? Because, like you said, it is conditional. And in a country where people ask you if you are married to find out whether or not you're sexually active, and where you cannot say no to having children, in a marriage, has there been no movement to expand these rights? I mean, I don't remember any kind of conversation, or perhaps it's just my ignorance, but I don't remember any kind of conversation within the feminist movement where they talk about expanding these rights and women's agency when it comes to abortion and, bodily autonomy.
In India, the picture is a little bit complex. For example, there are movements. It's not that there hasn't been, rather than movements, I would say campaigns. For example, the Pratigya campaign, I don't know whether you have heard of it. It's a campaign which is based in FRHSI, which is the earlier, erstwhile it was known as Stopes, which runs Pratigya campaign, which has been campaigning about expanding the rights of women. There is a new sort of kid on the block called an Arise Coalition, and we, Common Health, is also a part of it, where a whole lot of organizations have come together to talk about expansion of rights for women, particularly abortion-related rights. But where the issue comes up is, what rights are we going to talk about when there is a PCPNDT Act also in place? Where, if we say a woman has complete unfettered rights, then does she have the right to also terminate a pregnancy, which is actually a female fetus,
But sex selection is illegal. So we are operating also on that premise.
Actually, abortion is not even mentioned in the PCPNDT Act except in its preamble. It talks about determination. But the way the campaigns have happened at the ground level, it has linked the two acts or the two activities, or the two services, abortion as well as fetal detection, sex detection. So, we have that. So there are so many things. We have a very complex sort of policy and legal environment. So we are campaigning for expanded rights of women, but somewhere we have to take into account the disability movement, because the NTP Act is seen as a positive eugenics approach to termination. We have to think about the POXO Act, because we have to think about what happens in adolescent pregnancies. We have to think about PCPNDT Act. So, it has to be a very fair balance at this point. So it's not an absolute unfettered right of a woman to terminate a pregnancy. That is the current situation. You have to maintain a balance.
Okay, we'll leave it at that for this conversation. We've come to the end of the show. So you know what happens now. We move on to recommendations. Anisha, what is your recommendation for the week?
I'm going to recommend for a second time an essay by the Nigerian writer Chinua Achebe. Well, I'd like to read out from it a sentence, I think, because...
Just one sentence.
Yes. He talks, it's called, The Truth of Fiction, where he discusses the fictions that we tell ourselves, stories basically, to help us navigate through life. And he talks about beneficent fictions and malignant fictions. And he gives us a framework within which to assess what causes harm, either to others or to ourselves. The harms that other people do to us and the harms that we can possibly do to others. So I would like people to possibly think about abortion rights in this context. And I hope you go read it, because it's a fantastic, brilliant essay. And I keep going back to it from time to time. So that's my essay. Sorry.
So my recommendations are movie recommendations. I have two. One is Main Wapas Aaunga. It's a fantastic movie. It's a pacifism. It advocates pacifism. It has visuals of the Palestine issue at the end, which I thought was very great. And polar opposite is the latest DC by Arun Madheshwaran. It's a fantastic violent film it should be watched for Anirudh's score. Book recommendations: I just finished reading Kigo Higashino's Guilt. It's a fantastic book to understand. I mean, he's no more. He just died recently. He's the one who wrote Devotion of Suspect X, which was the inspiration for Drishyam. So his one of his books, Guilt, is really good. I finished reading it. It's a murder mystery. It's a very different kind of a murder mystery. So these are my recommendations.
Okay. I just saw a Telugu musical called Sing Geetam, which is set in a village sited just above a gold mine, which has therefore totally destroyed its forest. One tree remains, and they cut that tree down too. And with that, an old curse falls on the village that they cannot speak anymore, they can only sing. And so what you have is an eco-musical dealing with these very, very pertinent questions, which is a very delightful comedy directed by the same person who had directed Pushpak. Okay. Really a film worth watching. In terms of books, I just finished very belatedly reading Rag Darbari. It's this old book, Shilal Shukla. He wrote it in the 70s or something like that. But it's a story of a village. And it's a snapshot of a village at that time in India. And it's a really messy snapshot because you have the local elite. Well, I don't know how to describe it actually. You have the local elite controlling the local college, the cooperative bank, wanting to control the panchayat, and all of this narrated in a tone of absolutely wicked Hindi. Okay. There's a bit where a truck driver sort of says something cutting to a passenger who's a graduate. And the author writes that Indian education system is something that, like any pariah dog on the street, anybody can just casually aim a kick at and move on.
Where can our viewers watch this?
No, this is a book. You would have to read it. So there's an English translation and a Hindi original. What it tells you essentially is how the Nehruvian project of modernity, it's stepped into this rural India of feudalism, ignorance, caste, everything, and what it therefore got refracted into, and how the village essentially sort of tamed modernity. It's a great book. If you can read it in Hindi, it is hilarious.
I have two recommendations, and these are two pop sci books. One is called Entangled Life. It's a book by Merlin Sheldrake on fungi. I'll come to why I'm saying this. And another is called I Contain Multitudes. It's a book on microbes. Now, these are both fantastic books that talk about microscopic life, whether it's fungi, whether it's bacteria. And they, what really shook me about the book was that they talked not about our bodies as, like your immune system and in these very warmongering terms of there is an infection and then it has to be fought, but they talk about ecology, our bodies as an ecology, and they talk about the ecologies around us. They talk about how the interconnectedness of these things, and this very dated, twisted social Darwinist view of just competition is that it kind of gets flipped here, where they talk about life as collaboration. And I thought that those books made me think of how our politics can thrive more on collectivization, on collaboration rather than competition. And that these are lessons from nature that people constantly tend to twist, right, in politics, where you have a survival of the fittest as if it is written into some code. It's not. Actually, nature is more complicated. The world around us is more complicated. There's a lot more collaboration in the world around us. And that is something that we could learn and bring into our politics through scientific understanding. I think it would be really interesting.
So this segues very well into what I was to recommend, not any specific sort of reading which sort of aligns with what we have been talking about. But I like the way Arundhati Roy writes. You know, her characteristic honesty and exceptional command over the language, particularly in the latest book, Mother Mary Comes to Me, the way she has handled a fairly complex and challenging relationship. I wish some of us who work in this movement had that kind of, ability to argue and write what we do. And it would be very convincing. I don't know what her views on this topic are, but I wish she was on board with us. And maybe you need to interview her and find out what she has to say about this issue.
Yeah. We do have an interview with Arundhati Roy by Atul on News Laundry, but we do hope to get her on South Central sometime soon. That will make for a very interesting conversation. My recommendation for the week is very simple. It is an article written by my colleague Sukanya Shaji, The Rise of Teen Wife When Young Marriage Becomes Social Media Content. Young women being married has been highly glamorized, romanticized on social media. Many of them have become influencers. But Sukanya has looked at complex issues of agency, consent, and other things in this space. It's behind a paywall, but do become subscribers of the News Minute and go and read that. And like I said earlier, this is the Independence Week. This comes on Friday. Saturday is Independence Day. So this is a great time to support independent media, because without independent media, independence of a country will keep coming down. Though we would be independent in theory, in practice, we wouldn't be so independent. So that's it for this week. Next week, Dhanya will be back, and do join us once again by the end of the show. While I thank you for joining us, thank you Akshay, our producer, Ajay, our production assistant, Jasim Ali, our producer, Sukanya Shaji and Ria, who take care of our socials.